Hey guys, Quiff the Lazy Geek here, and today it's more or less there's few clouds, let's say, and the weather forecast is actually pretty good, so maybe we'll be able to squeeze in some imaging time. So I have my Newtonian back there, you cannot see it, already and set up, so I can, try to go for my current target is the Wizard Nebula. The last time I tried imaging the Wizard Nebula, I was away at the foot of Tokyo Tower taking stupid pictures of the Veil Nebula back there. That made no sense whatsoever, but it was fun, and I was remote controlling my Newtonian there from the hotel room back next to Tokyo Tower, and I could get a few frames, but clouds rolled in pretty quickly, and so it was not super great, and I want to take more frames of the Wizard Nebula tonight if I can. Now the winds are already quite strong, and with this clouds that we have right now, it might not be the best thing ever, but there is something good going on, is that at least I'll be able to see Jupiter on the horizon and Saturn, and so maybe I can take some pictures of Jupiter and Saturn, and maybe I can, for the first time ever, try a derotation technique with Jupiter and Saturn that would let me take longer exposures or longer videos for each of my red, green, blue filters. So, I could try this out. And so for that, I've taken the scope out. Oh, I feel like the Hulk when I do that. I'm so strong. Look at those biceps. And of course, I immediately hit the telescope against the mount because that's what I do. The reason I have my telescope out early is because I want it to be thermally at thermal equilibrium when I take pictures of the stars, or of planets actually. And that's actually something that's fairly important in general, having your scope thermally at thermal equilibrium. So what does that mean? It means that ideally your scope, and especially the massive, for me, mirror at the bottom of the scope, and it's the same with my Newtonian, should be at the same temperature as the outside air. Obviously, the outside air doesn't exist in a vacuum. It has air temperature changes, and so on nights where the temperature changes very quickly, the mirror might never catch up. And what happens is, if the mirror is warmer than the surrounding air or the air in the tube or all sorts of stuff, you have air currents that are formed. You have warm air that gets off from the mirror, rises in your optical tube, creates lots of seeing artifacts, and you cannot get good clear pictures of anything. Now there's a redeeming quality to Tokyo. Tokyo, the seeing, so the atmospheric seeing, how much the atmosphere makes the targets like blurry, is always terrible. So that means that typically, my scope not being fully at thermal equilibrium doesn't matter too much, because the seeing of the atmosphere is already terrible. So, what's the problem? But if you are in a region, an area with better seeing, which is pretty easy actually, probably anywhere other than Tokyo, or some island in the middle of the ocean, you'll be able to get decent seeing, and so you want to optimize your chances of getting sharp pictures by letting your scopes go to thermal equilibrium prior to your observing session. Because for large scopes like this one on my 8-inch Newt, it might take an hour or two even to be able to do that. But there is another technique which I have tried once, and I think I'll try it again at some point, which is to intentionally not bring the scopes to thermal equilibrium, but make it so that the rate at which the scope basically lets out the warm air from the mirror into the surrounding air is much smaller. And so instead of actually seeking thermal equilibrium, you actively fight it by wrapping the scope inside an insulating layer. No, I'm not an insulating layer, am I? No, I'm not. I'm 37 degrees Celsius, so that might not work well. But if you have those insulating, silver-looking materials things, my mastery of the English language and technical terms is as good as ever, then you actually can wrap the telescope fully in that and basically prevent the scope from reaching thermal equilibrium. The only place where it can actually lose heat is from the actual corrector plate here. Or if for my Newtonian, probably for my Newtonian it's less recommended, but for because it's an open tube, and so you want it to reach thermal equilibrium. But for Schmidt-Cassegrain telescopes like that, there is a layer of insulation, which is the front optical glass, probably even better for Maxitoff telescopes or Magnutes as well, because the front glass of those is really thick. To basically, you're never reaching equilibrium, but if there are temperature differences between the inside of your scope, your mirror, and anything in there, the air currents within your scope and outside of the scope, sure, the scope, if it's warmer, will release its heat to the air around it, but it will do so slowly that it won't matter at all, and you will not have that problem. So there are multiple ways to fight this, and it's actually, as far as I know, it's actually a big debate. So anyway, with that, I'm setting my scopes outside, and we'll see what we can get in the evening. So see you then. So unfortunately, my wife in the end made me come to a restaurant. A pretty, like, you know, standard family restaurant type of thing that we have a lot of in Japan that are very popular, but that means that I cannot image right now. So what I did is I uncovered my telescope prior to leaving, and it is currently imaging. I also realized while doing so that my polar alignment was out of whack, so this is not something I can fix remotely, unfortunately. So yeah, polar alignment, meh, we'll have to do better. But that means the guiding is pretty bad, around 1.5 arc seconds RMS, which is not going to give me good exposures, and I'll fix the polar alignment once I'm back home. But still, you know, I'm imaging away on the Wizard Nebula. Now it's the usual stuff. Right now I'm imaging sulfur 2, so for 300 seconds each exposure. And after that, it will be oxygen 3 for 180 seconds each exposure. And then finally, if we have still good weather, H alpha with 300 seconds per exposure. And I'm trying to get as much signal as possible, so I'm privileging O3 and to some extent S2 to have more signal in those areas that are weaker from the nebula. And H alpha should have very good signal to noise ratio very quickly, and that's why time-wise I'm trying to have more total time on oxygen 3 and on sulfur 2, just like I did for the Elephant Trunk Nebula that I showed in a previous video. And if you're interested, you can go and click the recommended video above to have a look. And so with that, we're still I'm imaging. Once I'm back at the house, I'll be editing the polar alignments, but I think that despite this, we are doing somewhat fine, and yeah, we'll see how things go. Maybe the polar alignment will not be that bad, in which case I will not, you know, redo it. And cross fingers. Let's see how it goes, and I'll see you later. Okay, and we're finally going home. For the moment, guiding was around 0.8 arc seconds in the end, and good times, but there's also wind, so we also get 1 arc second or 1.2 arc seconds from time to time. The frames are a bit elongated, but hey, it's kind of getting somewhere. But as soon as we're back home, I'll be redoing the polar alignment as quickly as I can without disturbing the session too much, and then we'll keep going with the imaging. The sulfur 2 is almost done, and then the next part will be the oxygen 3. So, you know, that's remote control, really, trusting that the weather holds, and you know, getting things done properly, hopefully. So I'll see you back at home. And here I am back on the balcony. In the end, there's no planetary with my other setup, even though Jupiter and Saturn are so beautiful in the sky. I think Mars is probably soon going to be visible, although I don't see it. Yes, I might be able to see it like right now, but anyway, the Wizard Nebula is in progress. I've paused the sequence. Sulfur 2 is just over, so what I'm going to do is I am going to do the polar alignment very quickly, and then we're going to keep going with the sequence, see what we end up with in the end tomorrow morning. So let me do that very, very quickly. So as expected, the polar alignment was poor. We are almost half a degree off. So yeah, not surprising that the guiding struggled a bit. So let me adjust that quickly. Okay, and now we have excellent polar alignment. So just as I expected, I knocked the mount out of alignment. I only had to play with the azimuth adjustments. So now we have excellent polar alignment. So I'm going to go back to the sequence. I'm actually stopping the sequence right now so that I can just like restart it and it will re-slew, autofocus, get the right filter, all of that stuff immediately. I'll do that inside. No, maybe I'll, because I want to basically be gone by the time the mount is doing its stuff, because as I walk on this balcony, which is a big slab of wood, then I interfere with the imaging session. So I'll do that once I'm back inside. So see you inside, and hopefully we're gonna see something good. And we're back inside. So I'm one floor below the roof. So the roof is actually like right above my head right now. So that's how it works. And I'm on the sequence. You can see we've done actually 19 frames out of 20 of S2, and we're ready to keep going with the sequence. Now the sequence will end at 3:10, which is a bit late with the sun rising shortly afterwards, but you'll see now I'm just pressing play on the sequence, and in theory our mount should be slewing. So we're using Green Swamp server or GS server to control the mount, which is different than EQ mod. And what's cool is that you can actually see a 3D model of the mount to see like, okay, where is it currently pointed? And I find this really cool, especially for remote astrophotography, because I was remote. I was like several kilometers away at a restaurant, and I started my imaging session from there, and I find that so cool. I'm a bit too trustful of the weather forecast, but hey, you know, if things work. And right now we're doing the plate solving, and you can see my error distance is 30 arc seconds, and that's almost exactly one half of a degree off. And that is because the last time we pointed to our target nebula, we were exactly on target, but we were wrongly polar aligned by half a degree. And so now we have that error that the plate solving needs to compensate. And so this is what's happening right now at the start of the sequence. So we're automatically going to target, automatically centering the target, we'll automatically have an autofocus run, and we'll automatically start the guiding, and we'll automatically start the sequence, which, you know, I keep being completely amazed. Now you can see my guiding here. So the guiding typically was like that little part on the left. This big thing here is me walking on the balcony, and here as well. So that is the impact that I have by walking on the balcony. I never want to do that. So yeah, that's the one thing that is really, you know, tough for me. I wish my balcony was a bit better. I wish this was not a wooden house, but a house built of stone, but that doesn't really exist much in Japan. So I have to make do. And we can see the sequence. We're starting the guiding. Once the guiding is started, we'll likely automatically start the autofocus. Once the autofocus is done, we'll start the actual sequence. Oh, wait! The guiding is not going to work because I was connected to the camera via SharpCap. So I think Nina will have an issue there. Let's see. I can go back to PhD2 and make sure I connect the camera as well. Hopefully this is going to work. So this is one of those things. I did the polar alignment and I forgot that SharpCap had taken ownership of my guide camera. Can this be rescued? Maybe, maybe not. I think I will have to stop the sequence again and restart it. So I do not want to park the telescope. I do not want to warm the camera. I just need to start again. So this is how things are. Like, so many things can be forgotten in this hobby. But if you have good checklists, if you're used to what you want to do, it can work very well. And here we are, we're plate solving again. This time we are able to select the guiding star, and immediately Nina switches to the autofocus so we can watch that autofocus run complete.
I love watching that. I don't know, there's something so magical about how automated the setup becomes, and it's automated because of all of the efforts that I put into it. And you need to remember that, like, this is the fruit of your labor, and I find it amazing. I absolutely love seeing that automation just like keep going and going, and we're seeing that with that autofocus run. And look at this curve, isn't this beautiful? And now we're doing the final exposure to validate the autofocus. It's validated, and we've started exposing the fruit of my labor. And this is like, regardless of how automated your system is, regardless of what your setup is, whatever you get out of it is the fruit of your labor. And you know, it can possibly not work, and very often we'll be frustrated, things will not work properly, but we work to fix those things, to diagnose them, to understand them, to find a workaround, and you know, and in the end we'll see the fruits of our labor. And I absolutely love that. And you know, often people ask me, like, why do you take astrophotographies of like stuff that everyone takes pictures of? You can go on Wikipedia, on the internet, on NASA website, and get much better pictures than yours. And it's not the end result, you know. It's the corny but absolutely true. It's not like the destination that counts. It's the journey there, and I love having this journey every single time I do imaging, and this is no exception. So, yeah, I'm loving this, and we can see that things are ongoing. Hopefully, the guiding. Oh, the guiding looks decent, especially since, you know, I typically have 0.72 arc seconds guiding. Okay, that's very acceptable. So there's probably not much wind right now. So glad that this polar alignment fix has worked. I'm surprised that we got so good guiding with such a poor polar alignment in the first place. But you can see right now the stars are aligned, everything's fine, and we're getting there. So anyway, I'll see you tomorrow. And by the way, if you're watching this, if this is fun to you, if it's interesting and you're not subscribed, welcome to the channel, and also consider subscribing. Tons of videos like that in the past on that channel, and coming forward as well. Okay, so see you tomorrow. And we're the day after, so as always, the mount did park correctly, but I had a quick look at the remote desktop, via remote desktop to the actual imaging run. It seems that everything after the meridian flip is no good. It feels like it stopped tracking after, like the mount stopped tracking after the meridian flip. I'm not sure exactly what happened, so what I'll do is I'll run some tests. After all, this is the actual first time that I use this thing called GSS, or Green Swamp server, or GS server, to control the mount instead of EQ mod. So, you know, it's an experiment. I lost around 2.5 hours of imaging time for that, but you know, that's life. And I might do actually a video about like how do you test a new setup that you have with as many tests as possible, including the meridian flip during the day. That's where you do not waste time like I did for this imaging night. But at least, you know, the telescope is back to its home position. The camera is cooled, warm. The camera is warm and like turned off basically. The fan is not turning, and we're ready to go and process this image. So I'll be doing this processing later today, and then I'll make sure to post the image that we get at the end of this video. So this was another example of a quick session, except that, you know, I didn't set it up from my balcony. I set it up from a restaurant several kilometers away, which, you know, still boggles my mind. We had issues after the meridian flip, so I look into that, and I'll have a video about that as well. And yeah, pretty much it. Let's see how the end results looks like. And you know, thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been a fun night for you guys as well. If you're new to this channel, if you're not subscribed, welcome to the channel. And you know, if this kind of video about like astrophotography, whether it's about imaging nights, tips and tricks, gear reviews, equipment tuning,
all that kind of stuff that can help with your astrophotography. If it sounds like it's interesting, feel free to go down below, click on that subscribe button, click on the little notification bell while you're at it. And for anyone, please go down below and click on like if you like this video. Leave a comment down below if you have any suggestions, advice, you know exactly why GSS failed with the meridian flip, or that kind of stuff. Everything is welcome. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Whenever you can, don't forget to look up at the stars, and I'll see you next time.